Hey everybody, this is Brandon Gaudin, former voice of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and you're listening to Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. Go Jackets, go ACC.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Basketball Conference, the ACC football podcast. Season previews roll along. This is my second solo season preview. No Joey tonight, but I do have James Coleman here back again to help us preview Florida State. James, we were just talking before we hit record. You've been coming on the show now for damn near a decade. We've been doing this podcast 10 years. I think there's only been maybe 2, maybe 3 years where you haven't been on to help us preview Florida State. So welcome back, friend of the show officially, right? Friend of the show.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I look forward to it. As I joke with people, I go where I'm asked.
Yeah. And look, man, we were just trying to think of like frame of reference in terms of how long you've been on the show. And you had myself and my brother-in-law at that tailgate for Virginia Tech, Florida State, 7 years ago? And you had been coming on the show at least a year before that. So it's been a while that you've been coming on here. So we appreciate you coming back on.
I don't know if you're the bad luck or what, but it's cool. I'm gonna keep coming. It's all good.
We're gonna find out. We'll come to the bottom of that eventually. This is an interesting team for a lot of reasons, right? 2024 was an abject failure, a total disaster. We talked about this team last year coming into the year. Felt like, could it be a step back from that team 2 years ago? Yeah, I think we reasonably thought so. Did not think it would go the way that it did, going 2-10. That was, everything went wrong. DJ didn't pan out at quarterback, offensive line issues, defense was a disaster at times. And I mean, a lot of stuff went wrong. 2024, you kind of flush it, but now you go from winning the ACC to going 2-10, and all of a sudden there are questions about Norvell again. So, I mean, where things are at, because, I mean, for me, looking at this, it's you can't go 2-10 at Florida State, right? That's how I look at it. I feel like that's how the fan base is looking at it too, but let me know if I'm wrong.
No, that's exactly how it's being looked at. And then add in, although the only thing Florida State won was a little bit of freedom from the conference by getting paid more.
It's true.
But you had that all behind you, and people, not really, with the trolls of worry about, you guys just finally got good. You got this. Is this punishment for suing the ACC or blah, 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 and all these different things. But Coach Norvell has he's a guy who always puts pressure on himself because he's a winner. You could definitely see on his face and how he grade. You know how people say, look at presidents when they look at presidents before they take the job and then after they leave. Yep. They age exponentially. It's one of those jobs where you're chasing a ghost regardless of who you are. You're chasing Bobby Bowden. And it's very difficult to do that when everything that you're doing is compared in it. But you reached the pinnacle. You were doing things that were a little bit not controversial at all, but different than what people have been seeing it by using the transfer portal and not really going to getting premium high school recruits. And now, you go 2-10 when you miss on your high profile, high marquee guys. And I think, they had to get rid of some stuff. Flushing is the best thing. They had to get rid of some guys and flush the debris out of it. Matter of fact, they had to do a courtesy flush. They got rid of so many people, and they tried to bring in some guys with a little bit of ties to the university. And your Deuce Robinson, but also guys that either you had the game plan against and you knew that they actually did make you sweat, or they have some winning traditions with them. So this iteration that's coming up in 2025 can make you cautiously optimistic. And rightfully so, because at the end of the day, nobody thought, and even some of the coaches that I know who coached against Florida State, where they're like, this is not a 2-win team. This makes no sense. There's too much talent on this field. There's got to be a disconnect, and we can go over and over, but you are what your record is. Right. And, this year Mike did some things differently, and, you hope to see the results.
Let me ask you this, James, because I mean, you dove into this a little bit, right? You touched on kind of both points, but do you think this was more coaching, or do you think this was more culture? Do you think it was both? I mean, I think it's. I mean, based on what you're saying, it's probably a little bit of both, right? As far as guys leaving the program, that were kind of muddying up the culture a little bit, but like you mentioned, I mean, there were some coaches or media people who were looking at it from the outside saying this is insane. The talent on this team, there's no way you can go 2-10, regardless of what the culture is. Football's a very culture-based sport, but I mean, how much of this is culture versus coaching, in your opinion?
I think it's a little bit of both, and we'll see what happens this year. There's one of my favorite books that I read years ago, and it was a story in it by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. He went to the king and said, I can train anybody to be more effective in military strategy. I will take your concubines and I will make them be able to march with precision. So he said, pick your 10 favorite concubines. He picked the 10 and then he broke them up into, I think, groups of 100 or whatever. So don't quote me on the numbers. He taught them marching orders. And they went and taught the other girls, and then they messed up and they were laughing and they weren't taking it serious. So he came in, he showed them again. He showed the 10 again. And then they went back out and they did it again. And they were laughing, they messed up. So he cut the head off of the 10 girls.
Right.
And then he picked 10 new ones and he showed them the marching orders. And what happened was they marched with precision. The king was like, wait a minute, you killed my 10 favorite whores. And like, what are we doing here? And then, but he showed them that, hey, to prove a point, this is what I'm doing. So This is what I would say is really Mike Norvell is at a crossroads. He had coaches that went 13. You went 10-3, 13-0, 13-1. So basically, you lost 4 games in 2 years. You felt like you had turned the corner. Maybe guys got a little lackadaisical. Maybe things came too easy. You had to get rid of people. When you went 2-10. Mike Norvell did some things and then also reached back into his bag of relationships. Mike, brought some guys in to get some new voices, do some different things, and now you have to give they look better. The product looks a little bit better. Guys are straightening up and flying right. I say all that to say is heads had to roll, and now we'll see what will determine success for Mike Norvell in 2025. 13-0 regular season is unrealistic. 2-10 regular season is probably unrealistic. In between would be 7 games. I don't know if that's enough. 8 games gets you closer to what the standard is at Florida State.
Yep.
And gets you into something that's meaningful where you're playing a bowl game, you're playing for the postseason, you're able to recruit. But it's how you lose and how you compete in each and every one of those games where I think the fan base and everybody will be watching with great expectation.
So it's a lot of pressure, needless to say. I mean,
but they pay you $10 million a year. When you get paid $10 million a year, I mean, it should be like the expectations that the boosters and the fan base should have. They gave Mike that extension to try to keep him from Alabama.
Yep.
Well, you should expect that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you can't go out and win 2 games right after you get that contract extension. Naturally, a lot of pressure. So he brings in Gus Malzahn. I mean, let's talk about the offense now. So you bring in Gus Malzahn. It's a very interesting fit in 2025 because I think what made Gus Malzahn great when he had that run at Arkansas State and then at Auburn was that he was doing something a little different offensively, right? And then he eventually gets fired from Auburn and he moves on and ends up at UCF, and he had a decent run at UCF, right? Leaves the UCF head coaching job to now become Mike Norvell's offensive coordinator at Florida State. Is quite the move for Malzahn late in his career, right? Especially with the UCF program that he inherited that had been pretty good, right? And now you decide that you're going to be an OC elsewhere. And we're seeing that across the sport with the way things are now. These guys would rather get paid as a P5 coordinator than deal with what you have to deal with at the G5 level. Or I guess even UCF in the bottom tier of the Big 12 when they made their move, dealing with what you have to deal with recruiting against some of these other schools. You'd rather just deal with less of a headache, become a, P4 OC. Malzahn in 2025 is an interesting fit because I think what made him great was his offensive scheme was new and innovative, and he had the quarterbacks to run the system. That's why I'm interested in the Castellanos fit, because Castellanos gives the Nick Marshall vibes just in terms of diminutive quarterback, right? Can do a little bit on the ground, can do a little bit through the air. I would argue he can do more in the air than Nick Marshall did at Auburn. Now he's this guy who's going to come in and kind of run this Malzahn scheme. What is that going to look like, in your opinion, at Florida State in 2025? Like, is this going to be the same as what we've seen? Do you think it'll be different? Do you think it'll be good enough in this era of college football where everybody knows what Malzahn's doing now? It's kind of the same conversation people had about Chip Kelly, right? It's like you had that innovative scheme at Oregon. You went to UCLA. It wasn't really the same thing. You tried it in the NFL. People adjusted. Like, do you think Malzahn is going to have this figured out to the level that Norvell needs him to in a really important year? And what do you think of the hire in general?
I think what you have to do is, again, you have to look at relationships and what you're actually looking at and seeing. Gus Malzahn, Mike Norvell's offense is Gus Malzahn's offense. He's a part of Gus Malzahn's tree. They coached together at Tulsa. In fact, a lot of the people that everybody wanted Florida State to hire, the go-go offense out of UNLV that ended up taking the Sacramento State job, that was the quarterback. Brennan Marion was the quarterback at Tulsa when Mike Norvell was the QB's coach and Gus Malzahn was the offensive coordinator. So a lot of similarities. You move the pocket, you run, you have a quarterback that's not afraid to run, and then you take your shots as the defense has to account for the quarterback and the offense. So Gus Malzahn as a coordinator is that guy. Gus Malzahn as the head coach that coordinates, it's a lot more going on with it. Even though we did see it in his first year at Auburn, where he did go play Jimbo Fisher in the national championship with the Nick Marshall again.
Right.
A quarterback that, right now, if you try to put him on a trivia thing, only Auburn fans would know who he is.
Right.
But the better part of the nation doesn't remember him. They just remember Florida State coming back from down to win that game. But we also remember what he did do when he got a elite quarterback in his hands in a Cam Newton. He can win a natty with it by moving the pocket, having a guy with a cannon arm, and being able to do those different things. Now, what he was able to do at UCF, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, then we can come back to it.
Yeah.
If I were to tell you that Florida State had a top 15 offense and a top 15 defense, Florida State would have been in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
What Florida State is adding in coordinators and staff with what people will argue a better caliber product is a top 15 and an offensive coordinator and a top 15 defense, and what Gus Malzahn was able to do at UCF without having the stability at the quarterback position because he did not have who he wanted to. Now, also looking at what Gus Malzahn has had, TC was his quarterback at UCF, but he got beat out by a young man who just got drafted, I believe, in the third round by the name of Dylan Gabriel, who did go on to Oregon. But Gus Malzahn does have quarterbacks that he can do something. But what he does is him and Herb Hand, they reignite your running game. They make they're able to put guys in position. They're able to use tools, and they're able to make different shifts and motions to be able to get the ball into the hands of playmakers that are not in your traditional positions. Obviously, we know running backs run, but we can throw it to the running backs. You throw it to your tight ends. You're able to have some of your gadget guys on top of, again, if you've got guys who can take the top off of the defense. I think the groceries and what she's able to inherit and able to work with at Florida State are a little bit better than what he had at UCF, including the O-line. But I think that's where Herb Hand comes into play. And if he's able to keep these guys healthy, we should be able to see some marked improvement with Florida State.
Yeah, because it wasn't just Malzahn obviously coming in as the new coordinator. It's Herb Hand as offensive line coach, and that offensive line room, James, looks totally revamped. I mean, this looks like it's going to be at least different personnel, new coaching. It's a lot of new on this offense. I mean, let's just call it what it is, a lot of new. how much of this is going to hinge on the offensive line. I feel like it is going to be a lot of it, especially with the scheme that we've seen Malzahn run with a quarterback like Castellanos before.
And you got a center transfer in that's got years of experience. You got Richie Lucas that's coming back. That was at the University of Florida, but he tore his labrum early in the season last year. Went ahead and redshirted. You've got guys and you've got people they brought in that are pieces and that he knows how to effectively use and that he knows what they are. So I think when you look at what Mike Norvell put together, where a quarterback, he had his quarterback coach, but that guy ended up getting the head coaching job.
Yep.
And made the college football playoff. Shout out to my guy. But Tony Tokarz was in the system. He coached with Yak, David Johnson, but hadn't really been with him. Most of the guys he hadn't really built a rapport or been with for years. And none of those other guys worked with each other. Now you've got your most important position groups. You got the offensive line coach. You got the quarterback coach, but / OC that's overseeing everything, and the wide receiver coach, all speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And as I love to joke, as I coached this position in high school, and I heard my coach, who I think is a legend, say this: the most useless position coach on the football field is the running back coach. You can either run or you can't. You don't need him to speak the same language, and you don't need your tight ends coach. You need the tight ends coach got to be an extension of your O-line as well. So, I think there's a lot of things that will make them be more effective than what they've been in the past because you've got people on the same page speaking the same language.
Feeling good about continuity with the coaching staff, at least, even though it's new names, it's people that have worked together before. I think that should certainly help in theory, right? Having the familiarity. Receiver, running back room. I know there's some transfers there. Deuce Robinson, USC, Squirrel White from Tennessee. I mean, are those the top two in the receiver room? And then if not, who are the other guys to keep an eye on? And then running back room as well. How's that going to be looking coming into the year?
Definitely my teammate's son, Dominic Robinson, a.k.a. Deuce Robinson, is going to be the guy. It's Johnny Wilson with more upside, more athleticism, more talent, bigger catch radius, a little bit faster, a little bit more durable. He's going to be your big play guy. When you're scrambling and you're doing scramble drill, defense comes up, chunk that bitch down there, throw it to the moon. Deuce Robinson's going to come back down with it. So that's one thing. And, he runs other routes very well, but he's a big target. Not afraid to get hit. Some people thought he was going to be a tight end when he came into college, but he's been a pretty good wide receiver. He didn't do as much as what you would have thought he would have done at USC. I believe he was a high 4-star, if not a 5-star coming out of high school, but you're bringing him in to Florida State. And as I said, he's a guy who cares. He's a legacy. So, his dad wants to come back and be able to poke his chest out. Well, baby boy got to be able to do something for that to happen. Squirrel White is, I can't think of the guy who he had on that 10-3 year, but he's your take the top off of a defense guy. Keep him in the 2-high safety look because if you're going to have your guy go to Deuce Robinson to help out, if you're in a 1-high safety look, then he's going to kill you on the post because most guys just aren't going to be able to run with him. He's very explosive, very dynamic. But the guy that I'm the most excited about, believe it or not, is Boggs, who the wide receiver prospect from out of Cocoa High School, was Mr. Florida in football a few years ago as a junior. Just coming out of a winning program in Cocoa High School, where if you don't win a state championship, you're one of the worst teams in the program's history. And people, they just work. His body is already developed. Reminds me of I'll say, because I think Anquan Bolden is one of the best wide receivers ever played at Florida State, but a poor man's Anquan Bolden. Big hands, tough catch, not necessarily the fastest guy, runs routes and gets in and out of his breaks very, very fast, but he's a big physical guy. So those are your top three guys. You add in Fryer, another legacy. You add in a guy from out of Jacksonville, another big body, Gelsey. You've got Elijah Moore, big play, big catch radius guy. A young guy that a lot of people bragged about, didn't get a chance to see him that much last year. But guys that you should just see, those are guys' names that you should get used to. Now, at the tight end position, they've got a trio that's really, really effective. They've got two guys that they recruited. You got Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, a young man who should be his freshman year because he committed and then he reclassified up. He's a defensive end tight end guy. Ironically, he's really good at both. Like, you can see a Travis Hunter-esque type guy with that, where third and long situations, they bring him in to rush the passer, but then he goes back out there, blocks decent, can go in there, run routes and catch and give you something. They've got Biscuit, Marquiston Douglas, I believe is Biscuit's name, but he's more of your blocker, can do some different things. But what I think Florida State was missing last year that they didn't have in the 13-0 season was a young man by the name of Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell plays for the New England Patriots, your H-back, a guy who is really tough to match up with, can block, can outrun linebackers, can catch physical, can also run the ball. Well, they got Randy Pittman, who was originally committed to Florida State, decommitted, went to UCF, came with Gus, and he's playing that similar position. I don't necessarily think he's as good as Jaheim Bell, but he gives you something like that. I personally think that's what makes Mike Norvell's offense work, because now you basically got a fullback in there that's a little bit better athlete. He can lead block for you. He can make defenses have to get into a different personnel grouping, because technically you're in 31 personnel, three tight ends, one running back. 13 personnel. I apologize. And it's really, like I said, that's the effective part. But going to the running back room, there's a lot of bodies there. I understand why Roy Dale Williams will probably be the starter. He just does everything like he's better at most of the things than everybody else can. Your run blocking, your pass pro, and running the ball. Jalen Lucas, if healthy, is just a different type of speed. He reminds me of when you got a 3-year-old, right? I believe so.
I do.
You got young.
I do.
Yep. Has your kid ever just all of a sudden just sprinted, and then now you got to go try to catch them, and they're small and they can just get in and out of things faster than you can. That's Jalen Lucas. Jalen Lucas runs like a badass kid, and it's frustrating, but it's like cool to watch when you. So I'm curious to see him in special teams as well as getting the ball in space. But man, I apologize. I will learn how to say this man's name. I just was at practice today, and I just said the first thing that rolled off my tongue. I said Osama bin Running is really, really good. I think it's Usman Kronwa or something like that. Number 32. That kid is special, man. Like, I'm serious. Like, he is like, and it's weird because he's bow-legged, really bow-legged. Like, he walks on the Nike check on the side of the foot, but he's got great balance, great speed. He's physical. I have this thing that I do on my social media. It's called Hit 'em with the Hymns. And it's like an old school gospel hymn, but with somebody just getting absolutely wrecked. They did some kind of hybrid Oklahoma drill. He goes up against Blake Nicholson, one of our linebackers, and it doesn't end well for Blake. But just to have a guy like that can create space, but also at the end of a run, he can put your career on hold if he needed to. So it's some fun pieces and guys like, we had Cam Davis the year before, and I think Cam Davis is an extremely talented back, but he came from being basically a wildcat quarterback in his high school offense. It is different when somebody's handing you the ball, and he was a bigger guy. So, like, they put weight on him, and he just couldn't handle that on the college level. But when you got those guys, and there's some other guys that they have, but none of them are – like Sam Singleton is somebody I think can have a breakout, big guy, fast, but nobody's better than those three guys.
Florida State's never short on skill position talent, so none of that surprises me. The freshman running back being bow-legged and just being different in terms of his speed and athleticism, and that'll be interesting. So, I mean, offensive skill position guys, new look with Malzahn, Castellanos talking shit and taking names with Alabama, which is.
And by the way, I love that. I absolutely love it. What's the worst that could happen? Alabama beats us?
Right.
I mean, what are we doing? Like, Alabama's Alabama. And I agree with Nick Saban's not walking out that tunnel.
Right.
But if Alabama's going to blow you out, they were going to blow you out before Nick made that statement.
Yeah.
That's what bullies do. So I don't put much stock in the bulletin board material stuff. But what if it ignites his teammates to want to go out and have his back? But I think with Castellano, but the thing is much like DJU made everything work, everything kind of centers around Castellano. So if he gets hurt and Sperry has to come in, you're probably talking about a 500 ball club. But Castellanos, with what he can do with his legs, really takes things to the next level. And I'll say this: I've seen him underthrow balls, I've seen him overthrow balls.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I can glean from that is that the timing is still not there.
Yeah.
With the group as a whole. But I don't think I think everybody's caught up in this elite quarterback. I think what you need more and what's easier to find is elite weapons for your quarterback. Put stuff around them that makes it damn near hard for them to fail and allow him to go make plays. And I think if they figure out how to do that, don't try to make him a pocket passer. That's not his ministry.
Right. Yep.
Let him move around. If he doesn't see it open, let him use his speed. And I just, for God's sake, son, slide, get down. You're a petite male. We don't need you. We don't need you trucking linebackers.
Yeah, don't be playing hero ball when you get outside the pocket. The one thing we can guarantee is that this will be the best skill position players he's had since he's entered the college level. I mean, it's going to far surpass what he had at Boston College for sure. Defensively, all right. Look, you don't go 2-10 and they get to keep both your coordinators. So you're firing Adam Fuller too, which I think was needed. I think it was a fine move, right? You bring in Tony White. I really like the Tony White hire. I like it a lot. He's been a good coordinator everywhere. I like the hire. 3-3-5, different scheme, different personnel, top to bottom. James, where are we at defensively? How do you feel about this hire, number one? And then talk me through the scheme, the players that are coming back, the players coming in. How do they fit? Like, how do you see this defense playing in 2025 compared to what they just fielded last year?
One, I'm an Adam Fuller apologist.
Mm-hmm.
You have to fire him. You can't bring him back.
Right.
But when you really think about it, and I make jokes and innuendo, but this is real. It's funny because of what it sounds like. Life is better when you got a lot of top. When you get some good top, when you got good D, you tend to have good top. And what I mean by that is time of possession. You need time of possession wins you football games. When you look at the Georgia Tech loss, and even what Georgia Tech did to Miami, again, like they control time of possession. And what's tough is you can't get your defense off the field, and they score on a long drive. It is very difficult to make adjustments when you got third down alert, punt, starting D, get back on the field. Like you didn't even have 90 seconds. Like you were on the field for 6 minutes. Actually, Boston College game, they were on the field the entire first quarter.
Yeah.
And once the offense the 90 seconds gets off the clock, there's no way you can make adjustments. You don't have enough time. So our offense didn't do the defense any favors. But what I'll say is what Tony White is going to do is simplify what the D-line is going to do. We're going to try to create opportunities for those guys to get double teamed. And that way your linebackers will flow. And that's where the weakness is in FSU's defense. But I think they've got some guys that can perform at a high level in this new defense. They're going to be blitzing. They're going to always bring 5. What Tony White brought from Nebraska was a team that, if I remember correctly, they didn't get top 15 defense. They did not give up a rushing touchdown at home in the Big Ten. That's notable. With a secondary that, wow, these guys, like the guys who were doing that are in the NFL, but these guys, a lot of these guys were around. Going back to that 13-1 season, Before the Georgia game, Florida State only gave up 4 passing touchdowns on the entire season, which is what made that defense remarkable. But you got Darrell Jackson, who's coming in, did not play football for an entire year, kind of came into his own toward the end of the season. Massive human. Like, I got a big head. Darrell Jackson got a huge head, and I can appreciate that, but he's also like 6'6", 6'7", so you can't really see his head, how big it is, but he looks like a tyrannosaurus. Like if you're younger than me, but there was a show called Dinosaurs that used to come on TGIF, and he kind of looks like the dad from Dinosaurs with that T-Rex head. So, but he's a good guy, big guy. They brought in a young man from Western Kentucky. Can't think of his name. Is Jacksonville product. Another large mammal. Some of the guys they recruited, body types. You've got some people. Then you got some guys that were already there at your defensive end positions. But where they're good is whoever, I can't think of his name, but number 19, he was a transfer in. I believe he's a transfer from Houston, if I remember correctly. But he's a DB cornerback, really, really good. Kirkland from out of Jacksonville looked like he's coming into play, doing this thing. Quadarius Jones. You've got depth in the secondary, and these guys are long and can run. Now, where they're going to have some growing pains are you're going from a man-free defense to a cover 3 scheme with man principles that can be woven in and out of there. He's not just going through there. But in that cover 3 scheme, the zone scheme, that's where you do it, and you bring a lot of different blitzes to try to confuse your quarterbacks. So if we can get the quarterback to believe that something is there, then you've got the long, fast corners who can be able to break on the ball, and you want them to make plays. And, I've seen that in some of the practices. There were some days where the wide receivers couldn't get separation. There were some days when, there was a lot of contested catches that the wide receivers made, but we're not facing a bunch of teams with 6'4", 6'5", 220-pound big body guys. So, that's to be able to defend. But Tony White's attitude, NFL caliber coordinator with Pot Roast, Terrence Knighty, NFL caliber coordinator that he brought over.
Yep.
You got Pat Surtain, NFL, one of the GOATs at DB, really good at coaching the secondary. So you got 3 levels of guys there, and you mix in Odell Higgins, who's able to kind of mentor Terrence Knighton a little bit, show him how to not, everything to a hammer, everything's a nail, but you can show some tact and things like that. JP, and really one of my teammates and the guy who I played against in high school has always been that guy, Ernie Sims. You've got a collection of talent over there in the coaching staff on the defensive side that could make you actually believe that you could do a 180. And again, you don't need it to be a top 15 defense, but if it's a top 40 defense, it's exponentially better than what it was last year. And I think that's where people are getting into. I don't get into the trolling battles. I don't talk trash because, as one of my friends told me at the Florida State practice, he said, James, you take it too far. And I'm like, well, I ain't got time to do all that. I can only go round and round with you so many times before I got to end the fight.
Right.
I'm not if I was a boxer, I'm not a 12-round guy. We're getting it. I'm gonna test you out the first 2-3 rounds. I'm trying to knock you out before 6. So I'm going with some haymakers. But if we're not trolling, if Florida State again, 2 top 15 offensive defenses gets you the college football playoff. Top 40 gets us 8 wins, and I think that's where Florida State is they're 8-win team, probably Gator Bowl bound. If you do that, it's just the reality. You got to stay healthy, and then you got to go into Clemson. You got to play Miami with a kid, Carson Beck, who I know very well because he went to the high school I coached at. One of my best friends is his quarterback trainer. Florida's Florida. We have no idea what Florida would be by the end of the season. But you are kicking off the season with the team just from all the recruiting things and just what they've had as far as culture goes is a better program than you in Alabama. So a lot of things have to go right for you to win 8 games. But there are 8 teams on your schedule that I should not be betting against you.
Yeah, you led me perfectly into where we'll talk about next, and before we wrap up here is the schedule, because we just previewed Miami last night, and a big talking point around Miami was obviously, okay, Carson Beck coming in. What's the offense going to look like? Okay, can the defense be like mediocre? Right? Can you just not be an abject disaster defensively, which is what they were last year? That's what the entire conversation was about last night. It's okay, Carson Beck, skill position guys are always going to have them. Offensive line, it's a crystal ball coach team. They're going to have it. It's, what's the defense going to look like? Same thing can be said here, right? There are questions about the offense, there are questions about the defense, right? Probably a higher ceiling this year with Miami than Florida State, just given where the two programs are at right now and all the coaching turnover. I look at the schedule, and like you mentioned, obviously you open with Alabama. At least you get them at Doak. It's East Texas A&M in week 2. Early bye, that's why I wanted to point that out. Early bye week. And I know there are 2 bye weeks this year, so how the schedule falls. It's like a late Thanksgiving, early Labor Day situation. 2 bye weeks got some of these schedules real messed up. Miami's got 2 bye weeks in 3 weeks. That's just front of mind because I looked at it last night. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. This is kind of nuts too. Basically week 3, you're on a bye already. So this is kind of a schedule that really, after this Alabama opener and the East Texas A&M walkover, it's a schedule that's really broken up into 2 segments, right? You finish off your non-conference play. Is that Virginia game? That Virginia game, I think, is a non-con game. Am I correct?
No, it's a
Alabama,
game.
East Texas. No, it's a conference game. Okay, you have Alabama, East Texas. Yeah, Alabama, East Texas, Kent State, Florida. Okay, so it's a conference game. So you got Virginia starting off conference play end of September at UVA, right before you have Miami come to Doak. This is a workable schedule, in my opinion, even though you do draw a Miami, you do draw Alabama, you do draw Clemson, you do draw Florida. You get Bama at home, you get Miami at home. Clemson and Florida obviously tough on the road, but some of these tougher games, man, that will sneak up on you. Pitt, Wake should be real bad, but you get Pitt at home, you get Virginia Tech at home. Travel into NC State right before Florida is a tricky one. That's the one I have circled on the schedule. Is like, okay, could you be looking down the line a little bit? What's NC State going to look like? But even with
and you play them on a Friday as well.
On a Friday,
Weird
short week. After the Virginia Tech game, there are ebbs and flows to the schedule. I think you probably wish you had that first bye week a little further out in the schedule than after playing against East Texas A&M is what I would guess. This is kind of 2 real tough stretches it's kind of these 2 5-game segments here in the middle of the schedule. It's an interesting one.
What you got to do is, here's the thing: if you can get into the second week of October, so that's basically your first 5 games. If there's some way you're 4-1. You completely change the trajectory of the program.
Totally agree.
You have the momentum. I'd argue you beat Alabama, you're going to go. The odds of you going 5-0 are really high.
Right.
I think you put the bye week where you put the bye week because of the Alabama game.
Yeah, fair.
We should be we you never know, but there should not be any bizarre world where we lose the East, whatever the directional school. FCS Southwest, if you're playing the video game.
Yeah, exactly.
Alabama, new quarterback, a retread coordinator. So you have the coordinator that Dober had at Washington, who's coming back from out of the NFL.
Yep.
But they play a different. It's not the Alabama brand of ball that would scare you. Dober wants to throw the ball, which really helps us. Even though they have Ryan Williams, who's a very tremendously gifted athlete, and they've got all kinds of other talent. But it's kind of what you want. But like, there are some things and Doak will be rocking. Doak will be packed. It will be sold out. So you have no fears in that.
Renovation's done, right?
Renovations are done.
Renovation's done.
Everything is there. Yep. Everything is there. None of us will be able to afford to be there, but they're done.
They're done.
You can't lose. Again, you have to win the games you're going to win. You can't struggle with the directional school. Right. Kent State, I believe, went defeated last year.
Yeah, they're awful.
And you can't lose to Virginia, who's not good. You've got to win those 3 games. And then again, you'll have the stadium rocking for the Miami game. And if you could beat Miami and you competed with Alabama 4-1, all is well. All is good in the hood. But then, the games that scare me just as an alum, North Carolina State will always scare me.
Yeah,
man.
And
Riley. It's just a weird stadium, a weird campus, weird atmosphere. Clemson and Death Valley, regardless of when you play them, it's going to be tough, especially if it ends up being a night game. Because you're probably going to play Miami primetime if you're 3-1 going into that game.
Yeah, for sure.
You beat Miami, you're going to play Clemson with a 3:30 kick, or probably again primetime in Clemson. Those are the things that you got to deal with. But again, the schedule. Really, and in Florida, end of the year, you don't know. Again, a lot of people see the outcomes of the game. People don't realize Florida. You can't beat anybody turning the ball over. I believe Florida State turned it over. They turned it over more than 4 times, but they turned it over 4 times inside of their 35.
Yeah.
Multiple times inside of the 20. Matter of fact, one time Cam Davis fumbled the ball while they were walking into the end zone. It was just a weird game of fumbles, and you just can't. You can't do those things. And, if you clean it up, you're going to be a little bit better. But I think a lot of those games are winnable. Yeah. And if, let's say, somehow Florida State has what would be a good record? So we got 12 games. So let's say Florida State is 8-2 at that point.
Yep.
Going into NC State. You got to win NC State because you're fighting for a chance to go to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Well, even if you're 7-3, you're winning. You have to win those last 2 games, to at least one of those, to put you in a premier bowl game.
Yep.
And because obviously, but if you win both of those, you're having discussions about being one of the outside teams.
Yeah,
going into the college football playoff. So you'll have things that, like I joke with doing NFL coverage. My only hope for the Jaguars, the team I cover, is to start off, like right now, I just want to play meaningful games in November. I don't want to talk about the draft in November. They've been that bad. If we're playing meaningful games in November, that means we're going to play some meaningful games in December. I don't have to talk about the draft in December. And if for some hope I can have that last game that's in January or right around New Year's, that game could be for playoff implications.
Right.
The fan base is going to be rocking. So, that's kind of where Florida State fans have to shift. Like the college football playoff has changed our entire undefeated is no longer necessary.
Right.
What we have to do is we're playing like how I play golf. Like I can't get around. I'm good with the irons though.
Yeah.
I just got to put the ball in play. I keep the ball in play. And the goal is to get one below par. If I can steal, but I don't have to hit it. I don't got to get it to the green in the first shot.
Right.
I think that's where people have to change their mentality, regardless of what you feel. The game has changed. More money is entering. These guys are pros, and you have to take a pro mentality. And I think that's the way you want to win every game, but coaches have to take that mentality kind of going into it. I think if you do that, this season will be very enjoyable for you. If you're going into that, Florida State got to win every game, brother. I'm here to tell you, man, they're not winning every game.
7-5. Does Norvell stay? Does he stick around? Does it have to be 8? What's your opinion on that?
7-5, you get a lame duck coach.
Yeah.
And essentially he's a dead man walking because you effectively have you. It gets worse because we add Notre Dame to the schedule.
Yeah, you're waiting out the buyout. Yeah.
Yeah, so at that point, you know, you're going to play Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida, Miami. So now you got 5 teams on your schedule.
That's the schedule. That's the schedule in 26. Jesus.
Yeah, we played Notre Dame in 26, if I remember correctly. And then you got Georgia, 27, 28, and it's just Mike's got to get to 8. Mike's got to get to 8, and you've got to play your rivals. You got to show because you got to win the state as far as recruiting.
Yeah.
And they just don't have any momentum in state. And as a guy who coaches high school ball, I'm blessed to coach one of the best players in the nation. Actually, he just got All-American he's 14 years old, kid by the name of Bryson Wright. I don't know if you saw that one-handed catch that went viral, like 4.1 billion impressions. He's like that. But to have a kid like that who grew up a Florida State fan, and Florida State's not even we're not even in a discussion right now of getting Bryson Wright. Like I was saying, I don't know what you call it, but we're not even in a discussion with some of the best players in the state of Florida. You have to get 8 wins. You have to be competitive you have to not just be competitive. It needs to be a game in which you should win against Miami and Florida, and then life will be good.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 7-5, but you split Miami and Florida, I guess it kind of depends on what they were this year, right? Like if there's some questions about both those teams, right? But I don't know.
Carson's elbow.
Right, of course. Of course.
And the expectations, he's not Cam Ward. Cam Ward's not him.
Right, exactly.
Cam Ward made a lot of plays with his legs and extending things.
Yeah.
That's not Carson's shtick. He's not a non-athlete. He's just not Cam Ward. But he's probably more of a pure quarterback. And then Florida with DJ Lagway, in that talented young wide receiver core, while DJ Lagway is everything you want, DJ Lagway also has a lot of injuries, much like another good kid that I know, Anthony Richardson, and they're putting a lot on his plate.
A lot on him
early. So, and again, they got another kid I love, Tramel Jones, that I coached the last 4 years, but he's not ready to go in and lead them. So a lot can happen with Florida the last few years, but those are rivalry games. So rivalry games, you throw your records out, and you got to go out and compete.
So, gun to your head, it sounds like you're pretty set on 8-4.
Mm-hmm. I've already Hard Rock has my money, so I need him to go ahead and get that so I can cash out.
That's fair. I think it's something that Florida State can navigate. I do expect them to be a lot better. Alabama, Miami, at Clemson, at Florida. That's tough. You do get Pitt at home. The two stretches I think that will tell you everything you need to know about whether this team will be 8-4. It's that early October stretch of Miami, Pitt, Stanford. Stanford's going to be awful. You got to go out to California though after playing Miami and Pitt back to back. It's tough. Like that's a tough trip. Stanford's going to be really bad, but that's a tough trip. Florida State should handle their business there. Tough trip before the bye. It is good you get a bye after that, but then that second stretch, man. Clemson, Virginia Tech. I'm a Tech alum. Tech's going to be bad, I think. At Clemson,
you think so? The quarterback is Drones come back?
Yeah, Drones is back. He's healthy, but it's a lot of change, man. Offensive line, and you're changing 2 coordinators, and it's basically what Florida State's doing. They're changing, the entire staff, but Tech doesn't have the talent that Florida State has. It's kind of that sort of situation. Now I just don't know about Pry. It's been frustrating. But
that's Pry. That's the guy who was at Memphis before Norvell, or is that they already?
No, it was Fuente. No, Pry was the defensive coordinator at Penn State replaced Fuente. And it's been very rocky. But
should they have gotten South Carolina's coach? Should they have went on ahead?
Shane. Yeah,
should have brought Beamer in.
You know what's interesting? Shane said that he loves Blacksburg. Obviously, he was an assistant on his dad's staff, and he grew up in Blacksburg, all that stuff. But one thing I found really interesting, because Virginia Tech plays South Carolina in the opener in Atlanta. And the one thing that's really interesting, right, there's been a lot made of it because of Shane playing Virginia Tech, right? Shane played at Tech, went to Tech, played for his dad, coached for his dad, grew up there. He said, I love Virginia Tech. I love Blacksburg. But he goes, in Blacksburg, I'll always be Frank's son.
Fair enough.
What I mean? Wants to pave his own way. Now, with all that said, should they have gone after him? Hindsight 2020, yeah, probably. But like when South Carolina made the hire, I was like, man, are you guys absolutely sure you want to go after a career position coach, never been a coordinator, and like have him run your show? And it's worked out. I mean, South Carolina's been.
It's the state of South Carolina, man. Dabo never coordinated anything.
That's right.
And
That's right.
Work. It work when you put good money. You put money behind a guy and it's organized. It's consistent. We also saw that with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer had never been. Well, my bad. That's a lie. Urban Meyer was a special teams coordinator.
Special
Urban
teams.
Meyer
Yeah.
never drew up a play. Drew up a play, but know how to talk to people and recruit. And I've seen Shane in action. He's really good at recruiting. So
yeah.
But that Virginia Tech game is I can't wait. I will be hopefully. Well, it depends on how everything goes. Like people else ask me, "Are you going to throw a tailgate?" No, well, I learned very quickly when you're 2-10, tailgates ain't very enticing. So, but if we're winning, we'll have two. We'll have Alabama and Miami. If we beat Miami, I may run it back for Pitt because we might have supplies, but we'll definitely go and we'll do a Virginia Tech one because I believe we'll be winning well enough to be able to do that.
For sure. Maybe Virginia Tech will be playing relevant enough football in mid-November that it'll be worth your time to throw that tailgate. We'll see. Get enough Tech fans down in Tallahassee. They will travel, right? If this team's any good, they will travel to Tallahassee. James, appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find your stuff.
At Big Game James _36. Den Media Group. My favorite, your favorite podcast that you don't know about, Big Games BS. Stands for big, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the BS in sports in the world. Short for Big Games, Big Show. We will have our Florida State breakdowns. We will break down the opponent. So I'm doing that shortly. Watch some Alabama games and just watch the 3 clips and just being able to do that. We do it live for our members of my channel, and then we post it on the YouTube. We'll do post game where sometimes it's more fun than others. So when we break down the previous game. Again, it's just to give you some game from a guy who's played it, lived it, coached it. It's a little bit different than people who don't know it, and no knock to anybody. I love watching football. So we get a lot. But for our members, we have it's $3.99 for the lowest tier. It's all the way up to $99.99 for the big game experience, which means you watch games. You do stuff that I do. So if you want to go to sideline of Florida State game, you want to go to the Jags game, what we have tickets when I go cover the Super Bowl, you get to go to the same parties I go. I joke with people saying for basically $1,200, you would have went to the Jordan Gifting Suite in New Orleans, and you would have walked out with $1,200 in Jordans. You would have been able to meet some of your favorite people, like on Radio Row. I'm going to put you to work a little bit, but it's fun. We cover the Final Four. You get to go to the Final Four like me. A lot of different things you get to go and do and experience, as long as you don't show your ass. But it's kind of cool. We do fantasy football, Pigskin Pick'em, where you can win $50 every week if you pick the NFL games the best. We also do college football Pick'em, where you can win $50 if you pick. Now, college football, we go with the spread. NFL, I let you go straight up. And we just try to have a good time. We talk about football and life. All opinions are good as long as you're willing to stand on them and they make sense. We just love to have dialogue, and I love experiencing other people. Like I love hanging. I love other cultures. I don't know if you realize this or not, Mike. I didn't grow up white, so I don't know what it's like. But I love seeing and talking to people and then finding out, oh shit, you did that too. Oh, cool. Then we end up finding out that we're all more alike than we are apart. So I love doing all of those different things, man. Love doing your show. Look forward to it every year. Can't wait to do it again next year. Hopefully, we'll be talking about Florida State having a pretty decent season.
I hope so, for your sake and for everybody associated with Florida State, because otherwise it's going to be really interesting content for me. And then next year's show will be really, really interesting for us to talk about Florida State. Season recap will be very interesting to talk about Florida State one way or another. We're going to see what this team looks like. I don't know. Should be good.
Nothing makes more money than coaching searches, though. I can tell you that much.
But I like damn right, man. They print page views, clicks. Nothing better. There's nothing better in the content game than a coaching search.
I just don't like it. I'll tell you this, and again, this doesn't mean at the end of the day we don't pay them to be good people. We pay them to win football games.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you would think my sons scored 10 touchdowns at Florida State. They treat them better than they treat my boys better than they treat me. And my son walks around Florida State's campus like he scored in both those end zones. And I'm like, you know what? Mike, you are all right with me. I just need you to win so I can
just got to win some games. Yep. They just got to win some games. We'll see if they do that. James, appreciate it, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be back. More season previews. The series rolls on basically every weekday between now and the start of the season. You're going to be getting the season preview. And we'll be back. More teams to go. Follow our stuff at BC Podcast ACC on Twitter. Obviously, find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And then, of course, check us out at youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast. For Mr. James Coleman and Mr. Joey Weaver, I'm Mike McDaniel. Thanks for joining us. Go Noles and go ACC.